Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to UIC. I'm the Chancellor of the University of Illinois, Chicago, and it's my distinct honor to welcome the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, to UIC's Innovation Center. It's also a great pleasure to welcome back our great friends and supporters, Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lightfoot, Alderman Ervin, and the City Treasurer, Konya Servin. Welcome. I hope those of you who had the opportunity enjoyed the tour of the Innovation Center and were able to see firsthand the thinking and projects that will define our future in many fields. UIC has always placed an emphasis on the experience and success of our students, on the impact of our research, and the role that we play in the city of Chicago. And all three of these come together very clearly and very visibly in this venue here in the Innovation Center. We're also recognized as one of the most diverse academic communities in the nation. We are designated by the federal government as minority-serving institution and as a Hispanic-serving institution and an Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander-serving institution. So we have both of these designations. We're talking about impact. Our College of Medicine is the #1 educator of Latino and Latina physicians in the country, and at the same time is in the top 5 educators of Black physicians in the country. What you have seen today is part of UIC's vision for the future. And this vision promotes inclusive excellence with everyone on the table. So on behalf of Chicago's largest and only public research university, it is an honor to welcome you today to our campus. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna An, and I am a human-centered researcher here at UIC Innovation Center. So here at the UIC Innovation Center, our work is all about centering the experiences of users, patients, and community members. Our work is really all about how to find partnerships and creatively find opportunities for a more collaborative future. So today, I'm delighted to present to you all Governor Jb Pritzker. In the same way that UIC Innovation Center centers the experiences of users, Governor Pritzker has been centering the experiences of everyday people in the state of Illinois. In the past years, Governor Pritzker has made advancements with Rebuild Illinois, creating jobs, increasing the minimum wage, and advancing equal pay for women. Governor Pritzker has also propelled Illinois as a leader of climate action change with his bill in clean energy. So with great enthusiasm, I say welcome Governor Pritzker to UIC Innovation Center.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, and thanks to everybody that's joined us here today. It is really, as usual, a delight to be here at UIC, especially among great innovators. Anna, the work that you're doing to ensure that marginalized voices are reflected in the solutions of the future is as amazing as it is necessary, and I'm very proud that it's taking place right here at UIC and right here in the state of Illinois. I want to thank UIC Chancellor Michael Amarides for all that you do. I want to especially tell you how important the work you've done here at UIC has been to all of us. We're very grateful to you. And you know, you've been running a major institution at the largest university in the nation's 3rd largest city, and one of the most diverse public universities in the country. And I can't say enough how invaluable your leadership has been. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, of course, it's always great to be together with you to talk about how we can shape a stronger city and a stronger state of Illinois. Today we have the honor of joining U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen here in Chicago, where we just finished touring UIC's Innovation Lab. In addition to Anna's work here at the Innovation Lab, we saw the latest and greatest in medical devices, machine optimization, in digital health equity. Really very important work is being done here. I'm proud that the state of Illinois is engaged in it as well with the Illinois Innovation Network support. Diverse people coming together to invent and problem solve and create right here in Illinois. It's exactly the kind of collaboration that will drive the future. And as President Biden laid out in last night's State of the Union address, the kind of collaboration that we need in order to expand opportunities and jobs and to lower our costs. Over the last year, Illinois job growth has outpaced all of our neighboring states and exceeded the national average. Also in 2021, Illinois grew new startups at a faster clip than all other Midwest states and at a higher rate than the top 8 most populous states in the entire nation, faster than California, faster than Texas, faster than Florida, and so on. At the same time, Illinois families are challenged. Illinois families are hurting. Rising prices at the pump and in the checkout lane are pulling at the pockets of our residents, and the costs of energy, childcare, and prescription drugs have skyrocketed when people need them most. We need to do more to put workers, families, and small businesses first. I'm very pleased to see the president lay out a plan to build on the growth of the last year, and most of all, to find ways for working families to see more of the benefits. That means raising wages, it means lowering the cost of childcare, reducing the cost of prescription drugs, and helping families afford their everyday expenses. It's what we've done here in Illinois, and I welcome the federal government doing everything possible to assist our families, and they are at it. Job numbers don't mean much, though, to the person who can't find one that pays you enough to meet your kids' needs. A strong economy must be one where working people can make ends meet and get ahead. The time is now to build out our economic capability, capacity, to create jobs, and to ensure the best innovations of the 21st century take place right here in America and right here in Illinois. Investing in innovation centers like right where we stand today is how we can do that. My administration's dedicated $4.5 million to an expansion of UIC's Innovation Center as part of our $500 million investment in innovation infrastructure in our state. When it comes to the technology of the future, we don't want any Illinois community left behind. I want to thank Secretary Yellen for being with us today to talk about how the federal government is our partner and can be more so in the future, and how we can work together to build a better nation for everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen.
Well, thank you to the University of Illinois at Chicago's Innovation Lab for hosting us, and to Governor Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot for welcoming me to the wonderful city of Chicago. I want to begin by saying that my thoughts are with the people of Ukraine, who continue to exemplify exceptional bravery as they face an unprovoked attack on their sovereign territory. Over the last week, Ukrainians of all backgrounds and circumstances have come together to protect homes and defend their democratic principles. You've also seen in the last week an unprecedented and unified response by countries on nearly every continent to Russia's invasion. Thanks to the months-long diplomatic effort by President Biden, the global community has never been more aligned, and our relationships with our allies have never been stronger. The Treasury Department and finance ministries around the world together have isolated the Russian economy and made it harder to finance Putin's war of choice. 80% of its banking assets are now under Treasury restrictions, and between Sunday and Monday morning, we, along with our allies, immobilized half the assets in Russia's central bank. Russia is increasingly on an economic island. We have also made it a priority to go after oligarchs or Russian elites who are key to President Putin's corrupt power. We have sanctioned many of these individuals over the last few weeks, and we're assembling a task force with Justice Department colleagues and our international allies to uncover, freeze, and seize their wealth around the world. If President Putin continues this unprovoked invasion, President Biden and our allies and partners around the world will remain steadfast in our commitment to continue to impose severe consequences against Russia and hold President Putin accountable for his illegal and amoral actions. As President Biden conveyed in last night's State of the Union address, American economic policy making is a powerful tool in service of democracy. In recent days, we have used it to weaken Russia. I'm proud of the role the Treasury Department has played and will continue to play in these efforts. But we can use economic policy also to powerfully strengthen America at home. The past year has demonstrated the power of strong fiscal policy to keep our economy afloat during the depths of a crisis and strengthen the financial situations of millions of working families around the country. It's worth remembering where the country was the day President Biden took office. It was the height of the pandemic, and it was a moment of real jeopardy in our economy. More Americans were applying for unemployment insurance than during the worst week of the Great Recession. Millions of people said they didn't have enough food to eat. And some economists were making dire predictions that the pandemic would plunge our economy further into recession, with many more jobs lost. Of course, such predictions never materialized. In fact, if somehow you transported a group of economists, including me, from that moment to today and just showed us the current top-line data, we would be quite pleased. By most traditional metrics, the pace of the U.S.'s current recovery has exceeded even the most optimistic expectations. Last year, our economy grew at its fastest rate in 40 years. Unemployment is now at 3.9%. That's the sharpest one-year drop in the rate ever. Household finances are generally healthy, and our economy appears to be poised for further growth. And we've achieved all this despite a new wave of the pandemic, which is important to mention because there's a very real counterfactual where Omicron did derail our recovery, a scenario where the new variant hurtled our economy backwards toward its state on Inauguration Day 2021. There are a variety of reasons that didn't happen, but among the most important is the American Rescue Plan, which President Biden signed into law almost exactly a year ago. The law helped distribute hundreds of millions of doses of the vaccine, but it also acted like a vaccine for the economy, protecting our recovery from the possibility of new variants. The rescue plan gave people money to weather Omicron and Delta, and it injected funding into cities and states so that they could keep essential workers on the payroll and help businesses stay afloat. Illinois used about $150 million in rescue funding to keep more than 4,100 small businesses open, everything from salons to laundromats to restaurants, including the owner of Sip and Savor, who credits the funding with allowing him to continue serving Chicago's Bronzeville community. Indeed, when Omicron started spreading around our cities, it did not find them broke and broken. It found them in a much stronger place to weather new waves. President Biden's first year in office was laser-focused on protecting our recovery from the pandemic. But as we're emerging, now is the time to pivot towards creating an economy for the future. Not simply to fight fires and resolve crises, but to build a better country. We now have a window to start building a stronger post-COVID America. How do we do that? That is the central question the President addressed last night. And the answer begins with increasing the productive capacity of our economy while also building a more inclusive economy where everyone has a real shot at success. As the President said last night, we need new economic thinking. And our approach is what I've called modern supply-side economics. It's an economic policy that aims to expand our nation's potential through productivity-enhancing investments, along with policies to encourage more people to join the labor market. To make our economy more productive and to add more workers, modern supply-side economics makes targeted public investments in areas like education and infrastructure, directs resources to underserved communities and workers, and introduces incentives for people to enter the workforce. It's a sharp contrast to the traditional supply-side economics we've seen, which relies on deregulation and tax cuts for investors to power purported growth. And this new economic thinking also ensures we address threats to our economic growth like climate change. And it embraces targeted investments in communities that have long suffered from underinvestment while addressing racial inequities that have plagued our economy for too long. Last night, the President talked about some of the ways we can do this, like ensuring that no family pays more than 7% of their income for the care of young children, improving our infrastructure through the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure bill that benefits American families, workers, and businesses alike, and finally enacting paid family and medical leave. And importantly, the President made it clear that we can do all of this in a fiscally responsible way. We don't have to choose between a growing economy and a fair tax code that asks the wealthy and corporations to pay their fair share. We can and we must do both. As the President said last night, this is the way to build a better America where, as he says, we build the economy from the bottom up and the middle out instead of the top down. We know this has been a difficult last few years for the American people, but I'm optimistic about our economic future. The American Rescue Plan turned us around from the path of recession to the path of recovery. And the bipartisan infrastructure law will start making the investments that will increase productivity. I'm confident if we take additional steps to support workers and families, we will be able to boost long-term growth that's equitable, sustained, and move decisively toward a more prosperous future. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. As a lifelong resident of Chicago, I am a proud Chicagoan and also a product of public school, including UIC and the Chicago public school system. With my lived experiences in the city of Chicago and my professional growth at UIC School of Public Health, I have seen firsthand the impact of policymakers and government leaders on everyday lives of people. So today I have the great privilege to introduce to you today one such leader, Chicago's Mayor, Lori Lightfoot. An accomplished leader and advocate for the public, Mayor Lightfoot has made profound impact for the city of Chicago. In a time of unprecedented challenges, she expanded economic growth. She has reformed landmark ethics, good governance, and has legislated worker reforms and protections, and has also raised the Chicago minimum wage to $15. So thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, for your continued service to the city of Chicago, and we're delighted to have you here at UIC Innovation Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I'm just so touched and heartened by your story. A child, a daughter of Chicago who's come back to serve her community in very important ways. So thank you very much for your work and the work of your colleagues here at the Innovation Center. I also want to say to Chancellor Amaritas, and we'll have more to say, but I just want to say briefly now, thank you for your vision. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you for your commitment to make sure that this university leads, that opens up opportunities for its students. Your legacy is going to live on a very long time, and all of the students who pass through this campus are going to be the beneficiaries of it. So thank you very much, Michael, for your service. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the great pleasure of welcoming the first ever woman to be the Treasury Secretary of the United States, Janet Yellen. Secretary Yellen is an accomplished person who's done a life of service to our government in a number of different capacities, and is leading now in making sure that we have an inclusive economy fulfilling the President's vision. And I also want to personally thank you, Secretary Yellen, and your team for tightening the vice grip on the Putin regime. For him, his people around him who are wreaking havoc, not only in Ukraine, and that is profound, and we see the damage being done, the crimes being committed every single day, but also on the Russian people, who, like freedom-loving people everywhere, just want to be able to live their lives in freedom and support. Thank you, Secretary, for leading the effort that is, I think, going to leave a long-lasting, crippling effect on Putin and his cronies and bring them back to sensibility so we can restore the life of Ukrainian people. We have a big Ukrainian community here in the city of Chicago, and they are desperate to make sure that not only their lives are fulfilled, but their relatives, their friends, their brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles that are struggling in Ukraine. They just want the same thing we want, which is to be free. Here in Chicago, we've already started to see the benefits of the American Rescue Plan, a once-in-a-lifetime federal investment that stands to strengthen economic resiliency in cities for years to come, and dare I say, for decades to come. For starters, thanks to the funding we've received from ARP, we were able to create a $1.2 billion Chicago Recovery Plan, which will create thriving and safe communities, as well as ensure our city's equitable economic recovery. You heard the Secretary's remarks. Equity, inclusion have to be at the heart of what our economic policy is about, and it's music to our ears, Madam Secretary, to hear you talk about those important North Stars and such incredible, with such incredible passion and poignancy. Our plan includes several line items for the resources our residents need right now to thrive well after this pandemic is over, including $157.4 million to expand affordable housing, $157 million to aid our families in a variety of ways, $117 million to serve and support our homeless population, $108 million to support the health and well-being of our residents, $86.8 million for environmental justice initiatives, $85 million for building on violence prevention efforts, and $65 million that's specifically targeted at creating opportunities for our young people. These are important investments which we would not have been able to make but for the Biden administration understanding that the lived experience of Americans must be reflected in government policy, and particularly in economic policy. So through this bipartisan infrastructure law changing topics, Chicago will also be able to invest in new and existing projects, not only to improve our infrastructure that residents rely upon every single day, but to create good-paying construction jobs for residents to take advantage of opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses to contract with city-led projects. And Madam Secretary, I'd be remiss if I didn't also say, we urge you to continue using the pulpit of your office to encourage banks and other financial institutions to open up lines of credits and other opportunities for these businesses to be able to sustain themselves and grow. That's critically important to improving and advancing our economy and making sure that it's equitable and inclusive. The impacts of the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure law are catalyzed by institutions such as UIC's Innovation Center, which works to bridge higher education with industry partners and commercialization. In times of recovery, federally funded research and development initiatives have long been the key to success in a city like Chicago, and our life sciences sector all over the city, fueled by UIC, U of C, Northwestern, and others, is booming. And we are taking things from the laboratory in colleges and universities and bringing it into the business sector with great success. We intend to catch and surpass what you've seen in Boston over the last 20 years, and I'm excited about the future of life sciences here in our city, which is one of our core industries. That's why Chicago's COVID-19 Recovery Task Force, which published its first of its kind report in July of 2020, emphasized the commercialization of university innovation to deepen our region's strengths in manufacturing, food and agriculture, and of course, life sciences. UIC Innovation Center is a shining example of this city-wide focus, and the university itself continues to be a critical partner in supporting and deploying federally funded research and development initiatives. For example, UIC set a record of $446 million in sponsored funding last year, with 3/4 of that from federal partners who believe in their research. I'm also proud to have UIC as part of an affiliate network of regional partners vying for an opportunity with the Economic Development Administration's Build Back Better Regional Challenge and Good Jobs Challenge. Chicago, ladies and gentlemen, is home to so much innovation and talent, and we are grateful for that. And in particular, why I'm excited about this Innovation Center is bringing our young people into the laboratory, but importantly, bringing them into practical experiences. And I'm going to borrow a point that was made by one of these last instructors. The innovation is important. Solving problems that are real for residents in our city. But another important residual benefit of this Innovation Center is not only are we giving our young people practical experience, not only are we connecting them up with future employers, but when these employers hire our young people, they not only transform the young people's lives, but the lives of their families. At a school like U of C, where many of our young people are first-generation college students, the opportunities that this university provides is something that completely changes their life's trajectory and that of their families for the good. So thank you, Chancellor. Thank you for the directors of this program. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here to see firsthand this is what collaboration and innovation look like. Thank you all.
Testing. Testing, 1, 2. Thanks, guys.
You guys say the traveling passport.
Thank you, Mayor, Governor, Secretary. All right, we're going to kick it off with Andy from the Wall Street Journal. Andy, go ahead.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I wanted to ask on this idea of modern supply-side economics. You laid out a few different programs that are part of what the president talked about last night. And so I'm curious if there's a particular program that you see as being most important in that sense in terms of modern supply-side economics. And then related to that, I'm curious where you see reducing the deficit tying into that. That's obviously something the president talked about last night. Do you see that as being part of an urgent need right now for the economy to reduce the deficit? And do you think reducing the deficit would help deal with inflation, for example?
So modern supply-side economics recognizes that private investment, private capital, by being, although it's one important factor that determines the level of output in the economy, it's by no means the only one. And the quantity of labor and the quality of labor, the human capital, the education, the training of the workforce, and the quality of our technology all matter to potential output. And I think of modern supply-side economics as focusing on that full range of inputs, and that includes public infrastructure as well. So I don't want to single out any particular one, but certainly we've pressed hard on infrastructure, public infrastructure, which has been neglected for too long, where we've really made progress in the bipartisan infrastructure package. And being here at this wonderful school, I will certainly say education and training, I believe, are deserving a huge emphasis. And also the focus on equity, fairness, sustainable growth. The benefit of focusing on less advantaged communities where there's been less investments of all sorts. That's also part of modern supply-side economics. You asked about the deficit. We've had very large deficits for the last 2 years, in part because of the need to respond to the pandemic, which has been extremely important, as I've emphasized, as the president emphasized last night, in getting the economy back essentially to full employment within a year of this tragedy striking. But it is important to bring down deficits over time. The president will release a budget which will show that we will do that. Debt has gone up in the United States, and debt relative to the size of the economy is higher than we've seen in a long time. But we're in a world of historically low interest rates, and the burden of the debt in real terms has actually been negative for the last several years. So this is affordable, and investments in people and infrastructure and R&D generate payoffs that, just like corporations can borrow and repay the interest from the proceeds of the project, these investments that are productivity enhancing enable that as well.
Fatima, AP.
Hi, thank you, Secretary Yellen, for taking questions. We've seen an increase in sanctions over the past week against the central banks in Russia, in the central bank in Russia, the elites, and several banks removed from the SWIFT system. But the energy sector has been largely spared from this punishment, and the administration has maintained that all options are on the table in terms of sanctions. What will it take for this sector to face additional sanctions, and what might be the financial repercussions for the U.S. With additional sanctions on the energy sector?
Well, our objective has really been to levy a very heavy toll, the highest toll we can, on President Putin and on Russia, to diminish his economic ability to continue to wage a terribly unjust war against an innocent country, and to erode the resources that he can use to project Russia's power globally in the years to come. I think we've put in place hard sanctions, tough sanctions. You can see an immediate impact on Russia. The ruble, a ruble is now worth a penny. It's fallen dramatically. The stock market is closed. There's been a huge impact on the financial system. Nothing is off the table, but in the process of doing this, we have tried to spare Americans and our European and other allies with punishing consequences. So the objective is to keep the pain to the maximum extent possible, focused on Russia and not on the rest of us. And we have attempted to shield the energy sector from sanctions. That hasn't happened entirely, but I think that's appropriate given our objectives. But as I said, nothing is off the table in terms of future sanctions.
Eric from Bloomberg, can you raise your hand? You're next. Yeah. Eric, hey, say sorry. We gotta go next.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Secretary. Speaking of Ukraine and Russia, how much do you expect that you're going to need to lower your U.S. growth forecast and raise your inflation forecast for this year because of the war and the sanctions? What will the quantifiable economic impact on your forecast be?
I can't tell you at this point what the economic consequences are going to be. I mean, we're operating under a great deal of uncertainty. But I would say that for the United States, our economic interactions with Russia are not terribly deep. We do very little trade with Russia, and our financial system has very limited exposure to Russia. So the main impact that we're likely to see could come through energy prices if they change. But as I said, we're trying to make sure that the world is well supplied with energy. President Biden announced last night a release of 60 million barrels of oil from our strategic petroleum reserve, working with our allies. So, you know, there will be some impacts on commodity prices, and there is a lot of uncertainty as this evolves, but I don't expect a major impact on the U.S. trajectory.
David from Reuters.
Yes. Hi, Secretary. Thank you for taking our questions. I just wanted to follow up on that. The sanctions certainly have shown a lot of cooperation and have had a big impact so far, but there's areas where there could be leakage. Some countries haven't quite signed on to them. There's China, UAE, Saudi, for example. There's areas where cryptocurrency could be used to try and circumvent the sanctions, and the Russian Central Bank has also ordered energy companies to sell Forex, trying to take the place of what the central bank can't do. So what are you doing to try to close these avenues and bring other countries along?
Well, we will continue to look at how the sanctions work and evaluate whether or not there are leakages, and we have the possibility to address them. I'm often hear cryptocurrency mentioned, and that is a channel to be watched. But I would say that many participants in the cryptocurrency networks are subject to anti-money laundering and sanctions. So it's not that sector is completely one where things can be evaded. You know, when the world's biggest economies and deepest and most liquid financial markets band together and put this level of restrictions on the largest Russian banks, including the Russian Central Bank, it is very difficult to find a way to significantly offset large parts of that. I believe these will continue to bite, but as I said, we're looking at everything.
Any other on-topic questions?
Chicago Press Corps, your turn. Go ahead.
Craig?
Marianne.
Wait. If you got a microphone, let's start there.
I guess we'll start over here. This is a question for both the mayor and the governor. John Lausch is holding a press conference at 4:30 this afternoon to make an announcement of public corruption. The ABC7i team has confirmed that it is Mike Madigan who is going to be indicted by the feds. Can we get your reaction?
Well, first of all, I've been saying for years now that we've got to root out corruption wherever it exists in government. It's why we've passed and I've signed ethics reforms in the state of Illinois. But anybody who is guilty of corruption or corrupt acts in this state should be held to the fullest extent of the law, accountable for their actions.
And I would just say, let's not get ahead of the facts. You know, as you know, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I want to see what the U.S. Attorney's Office has to say and what the specifics are, and then we'll have a more formal comment at that time. I don't think it's appropriate for me to get into the substance based upon press speculation about something that we don't know and we haven't gotten confirmation from the U.S. Attorney. We'll see what happens at 4:30, and then we'll respond.
WTTW.
Yes, Governor, could you further comment? You have been somebody who, describe your relationship, I guess is what I'm asking, with Madigan at this point in time, how it has been. He is no longer the speaker, of course, but he was such a mainstay. You sort of seem to keep a distance from him, but not completely. How did you navigate that, and what do you think that this says about the nature of Illinois politics?
Well, when you become governor and there is a Speaker of the House and there is a Senate President, you need to work with the leaders in the General Assembly. So let's start with that. I think, again, I have heard accusations over time, as you know, and as you just acknowledged. I have kept my distance. And very importantly, I really have believed, and you've heard me say it over and over again, and push legislation, that we have got to root out these people in public office if they have committed acts of corruption. And so that's what I've been pushing. You heard me say it at a State of the State address not very long ago. I've signed legislation very recently on it. And, you know, as the mayor just said, I don't know the facts, what we're going to hear at the press conference later today. But if it's as you describe, you know, again, whoever it is, in whatever level of office in the state of Illinois, if you're committing acts of corruption, you've got to go.
Mitch from Sun Times.
Governor, Speaker Madigan obviously was in office to help pass some of the landmark legislation that you got through in your first year in office. Does this indictment taint any of that legislation in your mind?
The legislation that I've gotten passed over the course of the last 3 years, for the most part, has gotten overwhelming support, sometimes bipartisan overwhelming support. So look, I attribute that to running a campaign that's about issues, convincing people who live in the districts of the people who voted for it that they ought to vote for it, and making sure that you've got a steady course toward changing and uplifting the state of Illinois and putting working families in charge.
I can understand, actually to the mayor, because as a former federal prosecutor, you know what work has gone on. Should this be, and of course, if you take a look, it's confirmed by several very highly placed sources.
I hear you.
So what goes on to get to this point? Because this really seems to be what they were aiming for years.
Well, look, what I would imagine is a number of things to put together a case like this to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that an elected official has engaged in some kind of criminal acts. You're going to start with people around them to determine, and sometimes these things just get, like, frankly, in the instance it's alleged with Ed Burke, somebody who is sick and tired of being shaken down, and they come forward and cooperate with government. Maybe that's what happened here. I don't know. You want to make sure that you're doing an exhaustive financial examination of books and records to see any way that monetarily an elected official may have profited. And then, you know, realistically, you're going to go up on a wire, which means you're going to wiretap phones and other devices. And if you've got a cooperating witness, you're going to send them in to tape conversations with the individual. So this is a kind of case, if this is in fact true, of such incredible significance, somebody who has really shaped Illinois politics for 40 years, dominated almost every aspect of life from a political standpoint, from a legislative standpoint. You better have a tight case, because if you're going to take the shot, you're not going to want to miss. And, you know, I have a great deal of respect for my former colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office. As you know, John Lausch and I were colleagues at the same time in the office. This is something that would also have been approved by Maine Justice, so this would have gone to DOJ for approval, as all public corruption-related cases do. You know, it's telling to me, if this is true, that, what was it, almost a year and a half ago, when the deferred prosecution agreement was announced for ComEd, there was a lot of damning allegations at that point, yet no charges. And we've seen a parade of other people get charged since then, and yet no charges. So I will be very interested to see what the announcement is today, but I would imagine that this case has lots of layers of evidence that got us to this point and would account for the passage of time from what we saw, I think it was in the summer of 19 to now, or summer 20 maybe, to now where we are in 22. But again, I don't want to go much further and speculate. I don't think it's fair to the office. I don't think it's fair to the federal agents who have been working diligently on this case. And I certainly don't think it's fair to whoever the target of the charges, it sounds like, that are going to be announced later today. We'll have plenty to talk about later.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. That's a wrap, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.